Welcome back to the channel. Warhammer Man back in the studio with another one of our previews, this time for the Tyranid. And we saw a little preview for this, part of this model back at LVO, and now it's time to have our first official look. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for Warhammer 40,000 Kill Team, necromunda, Age of Sigmar, and warcry content as well. Let's jump right in. Sighted, a terrifying new Tyranid organism. Not that one, though. We've seen the new Tyranid Codex and Combat Patrol, but is that the flapping of leathery wings? So here we have our new model. This was the one that was shown off previously at the LVO. In my opinion, I really like it. It has a very, very nice aesthetic to it. Goes quite well with the existing line, but definitely has some serious improvements to it. I like the overall look of the wings, the body of it and everything. Very nice looking model right there. Definitely our first full look, so let's take a deeper look. Wait, could that be? Yes, it's the legendary Parasite of Mortrex. The winged Tyranid monstrosity will soon cast a gruesome shadow over the battlefields of Warhammer 40,000. This huge flying gribbly, first encountered on the planet of Mortrex, was originally mentioned in the 5th edition Tyranid Codex, and Crusade rules have allowed Tyranid characters to mimic its horrific implant attack, but nothing compares to the real deal. With this new plastic model, the classic critter is lunging out of lore and onto the tabletop for the first time ever. So here we have a couple more pictures. Again, really like it. Very nice look to it. Yeah, super cool. I mean, the detail is awesome. There's like a little more detail in like the actual claws. Obviously, the actual wings themselves, they have like the little stretch kind of bits to them. Very nice. Looks like this is all like painted on detail right here, but very, very nice. Definitely like it. I like how it's the actual armor is like not just regular and completely uniform. With like a lot of the older stuff, everything is like super uniform and all lines up perfectly. Here we see like different ways that this has developed, and it definitely just looks super cool. It looks like an updated version of old stuff. So this beastie has the synapse keyword, giving it sway over lesser bioforms like gargoyles and making airborne swarms an altogether more tasty and horrifying prospect. Better still, it has fairly worrying stat line of its own, with a monstrous 16-inch move characteristic and enough of a melee punch to gobble up weaker foes all by itself. So it says it's big. It didn't say how big yet, so we need to see some kind of size comparison. Hopefully we do here. But for the Parasite of Mortrex, stat line, move is 16 inches, weapon skill is 2+, ballistic skill is 3+, strength 5, toughness 5, wounds 6, attacks 6, leadership 8, and save is 4+. The parasite's clawed limbs can rip enemies to shreds, but just wait until you see what it can do with its barbed ovipositor. That's the pointy bit it used to lay eggs. Just in case you're not familiar with the Ordo Xenos lingo, spoiler alert, there are about to be a lot more ripper swarms running around. So the barbed ovipositor, I don't know. Melee, strength +1, AP -1, damage 1. Abilities, Parasite Infection. Each time the bearer fights, it makes one additional attack with this weapon, and no more than one attack can be made with this weapon while resolving that fight. So that will be a 7th attack at strength 6. And then Parasite Infection, the special rule. Each time an attack is made with this weapon successfully wounds an enemy, excluding vehicle units. That unit suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage and becomes infected with parasites. At the start of your opponent's command phase, for each enemy unit that is infected with parasites, your opponent must roll 1d6. On a 1 through 3, that unit being rolled for suffers a d3 mortal wounds and is no longer infected with parasites. On a 4 through 6, that unit being rolled for suffers a d3 mortal wounds and remains infected with parasites. So either way, it takes a mortal wound when you wound it. The command phases that follow, it's going to take another d3 mortal wounds, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. The question is, on a 1 through 3, the parasite goes away. On a 4 through 6, it still has parasites, so it would continue to make this roll every turn. If that unit suffers 2 or more mortal wounds as a result of this ability, this phase, set up a new friendly Hive-Fleet Ripper Swarm unit on the battlefield within 3 inches of that unit, and not within engagement range of any enemy units. That Ripper Swarms unit contains 1 model, and if you are playing a game that uses points limit, does not cost any reinforcement points. So if you roll on the D3 a 3, 4, 5, or 6, regardless, you get a new Ripper Swarm out of it. So your opponent obviously can command reroll that because they're the one making the roll. But they have to place it within... You set up a new friendly unit within 3 inches and not within engagement range of an enemy unit. Pretty cool. I mean, obviously the Ripper Swarm itself is not really going to do like a ton, but the fact that now they have to deal with it. Now this is happening during their command phase, so it's not like they can't just like divert a little bit of fire to like shoot at this or whatever. But the key is that it's doing some mortal wounds and then it's creating something that they have to deal with just as part of its attack. Now, if it's still in combat with this thing, who knows if it got away, if it's dead, etc. You know, I don't know how relevant this rule is going to be necessarily, but it's definitely like a cool little rule to go with it. The fact that it could potentially die and then still have something infected and then that thing died later on because of it is pretty cool, honestly, I think. So realistically, it does an immediate mortal wound to them, and then the next turn, regardless, they're going to take 1 to 3 more mortal wounds. So in all reality, it does 2 to 4 mortal wounds if it just wounds with this attack. So that alone is pretty freaking good. 2 to 4 mortal wounds on a wound with that single attack. And then, you know, the little Ripper Swarm and all the other stuff is extra. Bring new life into the world is never easy unless you're a Tervagon, and the parasite victims can suffer mortal wounds round after round as newborn Rippers gnaw their way out of the enemy host. It gets worse. These literal stomach bugs will also itch any survivors into such a frenzy that they lose their objective secured ability. So the next ability is called It Itches. While a unit is infected with parasites, it loses the objective secured ability. This ability makes the Parasite of Mortrex more than just a horrific annoyance. It can swoop behind enemy lines, infect units parked on vital objectives, replacing whole squads with fresh Ripper Swarms that can claim the battlefield for the hive mind. You'll soon be able to add a Parasite of Mortrex to your flying brews of winged hive tyrants, gargoyles, hive crones, and harpies. The skies of the 41st millennium have never looked scarier. So it doesn't show how big this is, unfortunately. But I do want to look at something. Each time the bear fights, it makes 1 additional attack with this weapon. No more than 1 attack can be made with this weapon while resolving that fight. Each time an attack is made with this weapon successfully wounds an enemy unit, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound in addition to any normal damage and becomes infected with parasites. At the start of your opponent's command phase, for each enemy unit that is infected, your opponent must roll a d6. So if you have a unit of 10 models, it's not like just 1 model in that unit gets infected. It literally infects the entire unit. And then on a 1 through a 3, the unit is no longer infected with parasites. On a 4, 5, or 6, the unit is still infected with parasites and suffers an additional D3 wounds. So if you have a Space Marine unit of, say, like 5 guys with, 2 wounds each or something like that, this could be pretty good, actually, because you're essentially causing long duration pain to that unit. Now, it can go either way. Once it's infected, it can't be infected like multiple times, but obviously it can get rid of the infection. But if you just stay in combat and tie them up, and maybe you don't infect it 1 turn, or maybe it's already infected and you hit it again, it still takes another mortal wound, and it's still infected, etc. This is definitely pretty good. The real question is, what's its other attacks going to look like in addition to this? I imagine they're going to be decent. It has a decent strength. It has quite a few attacks. 6 attacks already at strength 5 base, hitting on 2s. So it probably does a decent amount of damage on its own, depending on what other weapons it has. So it's probably going to be pretty good in combat. The fact that it can like linger and leave some mortal wounds on a unit is pretty cool. The fact that it can take away objective secured is pretty cool and could definitely make a difference. Yeah, I mean, it's slick. It's a cool little fun rule. You could potentially take like 3 of these things and have multiple units infected and just have like random little ripper swarms popping up at 1.5 per turn, roughly, maybe 1 per turn, assuming you don't wound with 1 or whatever. So it's cool. I mean, you can start like building up. Maybe you could have like 4, 5, 6 units infected and potentially be getting 3 little 1 ripper swarms per turn. It's cool. I mean, I like it. It's fun. It's flavorful. It's definitely like something from the lore. I wish we could tell how big it is. Can we get any kind of clues to the size of this thing? Like, is this a 40 mil base right here? We really don't know. I can't quite tell like how big it is without any kind of like perspective. I guess maybe from like the little bits of grass on there, it kind of looks like it would be bigger than a 40 mil base, just by like how small the little pieces of grass are. Yeah, tough to tell. We will have to see. Now, I did see somebody commented something in one of the recent videos, the Tyranid videos, about a potential for I feel like they said this model, and a potential dual kit for the Red Terror. And to tell you the truth, this thing kind of looks like the Red Terror. So if you were the one who commented that, or you know anything about it, is that some kind of leak or something that you heard about previously? Or were you just speculating? I mean, there's no way you speculated that perfectly. But I'm pretty sure somebody just said in a very recent video, I'll have to go back and look at it, but I'm pretty sure somebody just said they were potential for this Mortrex unit and a potential dual kit for the Red Terror. So I wonder if that is true. Interesting. I will have to go back and look at that and see, but maybe somebody has some kind of insight. Because I could easily see this thing, imagine it with no wings and not these little like tentacly things, the little deals going on here. Possibly even like a different tip on the tail. And then just picture this thing with a couple more claws. And again, without the wings. And it basically looks like the Red Terror. So I'm very curious about that now, actually. I'll have to go back and look and see who that is and see if they respond also. So if you're the one who put that and you're watching this video, let me know if you have some sort of insight, if you heard something about a leak or whatever. Because this thing does look a lot like the Red Terror. So very interesting. Maybe even like a little bit different of a face. I don't know. That would be pretty cool. If this was a dual kit, you know, and it was on like, say, maybe bigger than a 40, maybe like a 50 mil base or something like that. Maybe even bigger. But pretty cool. I like this. I like that it is a new unit. I'm excited to see just new units. I want to see something like we were talking about in the comments after the last video. I would love to see something like Imperial Knight size, like a huge creature. And then I would like to see like a couple random gaps of stuff filled. But for me, the biggest thing is I just want to see some cool new models. And then also I want to see the codex be balanced to where you can pick like whatever you want. You can build your army however you want. I don't want it to be like you have to take this unit or your army is just going to be terrible. Like Hive Guard were basically like an auto include in every single Tyranid army. A Flyrant or a just like a random necessity basically build to make the army decent. I like the idea of people taking swarm armies. I like the idea of people taking like a Crusher Stampede, like big all bug Nidzilla type army. I like the idea of an army with tons of flying. I like the idea of just people being able to build an army how they like it and having like that diversity of builds because of like the different special like rules for the various high fleets, etc. So I'll be super excited to see this codex and to see some more of these like leaks and everything. Overall, obviously the viability of this guy depends on the points. As of now though, what do we really have that flies? We have basically like Shrikes or flying Tyranid warriors, which we don't actually have models for. I was speculating that's what this was going to be. We have the flying Hive Tyrant, and then we have gargoyles and technically flying Ripper Swarms. So I would really like to see more flying units. I hope that we get strikes. I hope that we get a kit for flying Ripper Swarms. That would be super awesome for this. But the fact that they are branching out is definitely awesome. So I think this makes a more flying army like a little more, and then obviously some of the big boys too. I think this makes a flying army a little more viable. I personally like a mix myself, and honestly just want to see some diversity in the Tyranid range. Based on like the codexes recently, though, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that the new codex is going to be pretty awesome. I mean, it's no secret that Games Workshop likes codex creep and likes to use new codexes to sell new models. So I'm assuming this guy is going to have really good rules, and probably everybody's going to want to buy, one or three of them. So, just judging by Games Workshop and, their marketing techniques, I would say this dude's probably going to be awesome and super undercosted. So get ready to buy some of these bad boys. Who knows, too, this might be the type of thing where he is a special character and you can only take one per army, and then it really is like a dual kit, and you can make the Red Terror out of it, too. And again, he's a special creature. You can only take one per army. So maybe everybody wants two of these because both of them are awesome, but you can only have one of each. I don't know. Complete speculation. So let me know what you think down below. Curious to hear your speculations. What do you think about this guy? Are you like super familiar with the lore and maybe you know a little bit extra about this you would care to share down below? I would be happy to hear it. I've obviously heard of this before, but don't know a ton about it. Obviously kind of reminds me of the StarCraft queen, like laying, like, planting eggs basically inside, like infecting them with like the parasite or whatever. So I do like the idea of tiny little Ripper Swarms like popping out of them with like a StarCraft sort of like alien thing going on. So very cool. Cool model. I love it. So let me know what you think down below. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to leave a comment and let me know. Obviously, I enjoy doing them, but we do all kinds of reactions, reviews, show-off commissions as they come out of the studio, all kinds of conversion tutorials, painting tutorials, and pretty much anything to do with tabletop gaming for Warhammer 40,000, Kill Team, Necromunda, Age of Sigmar, and Warcry as well. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.